Welcome to POSTCAST tonight after the Utah Jazz fall to the Chicago Bulls 93-89. This is really a heart-wrenching loss because some of the Jazz play tonight was so terrific. I mean, Ron, we had a serious sequence there, which was probably the final 3 minutes of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter was some of the best defense we've seen out of the Jazz all year. That was a sequence that made you really suddenly believe the Jazz could be pretty darn good. I mean, that was great basketball. And then down the stretch, they just couldn't finish it. It was such a bummer.
Anytime you play defense and the shot clock runs out on you, that means that you play great position defense. You were in the right spots, to make things happen.
So the Jazz tonight, let's talk about the end. Jefferson, who has been money all year for them, was fabulous tonight. He had it rolling, and the Bulls just simply decided we're taking him out of the game. And in the final 9 minutes, he did not score, which is incredibly unusual. What did they do?
It was just a tribute, I think, to the Bulls and how they changed their defensive scheme on how they wanted to defend him. And it's okay, he's hot. See if we can take that away from him and force someone else to get the job done. No one else did. They kept trying to feed getting the basketball. And then there's 5 seconds left on the shot clock. So it made it awfully tough for the Jazz to score.
Jazz couldn't get the high-low going into him. They couldn't get they tried to enter from the wing. They just couldn't find it. And on the flip side, Carlos Boozer, who had been outplayed all night long by Paul Millsap and Al Jefferson or any combination of them, then took over the game and led the Bulls on an 11-2 run. He scored all 11, and I'll be honest, the stunner to me was a guy who's practiced against him almost his entire career in Paul Millsap got beat on 3 occasions by Carlos's left hand.
Going to his left. That's his power hand. But the success they had was with the pick and roll with Benelli and Boozer. Having to respect the outside shooting of Benelli, and then Boozer coming up with, with the plays that he was able to come up with. So nice job there by Tom Thibodeau with what he was able to get done.
Well, give Tom Thibodeau a lot of credit because he really just took the ball out of Nate Robinson's hand.
Yeah, right.
Nate Robinson made a late-game play that gave him some doubt of whether Nate was going to make the right plays for the rest of the night. And then he turned it over to Bellinelli. Mm-hmm. Alec Burks had taken Nate a little bit out of the game as well. Alec Burks played as good a game, as I've seen him play. He has just, in the last 3 games, made monumental strides in the way he's approaching the game, how he's playing the game, and actually he's hit some shots. He was 2 of 6 tonight, but he did hit some outside shots tonight.
And getting better at running the team, which is the most important thing here, is getting the team into the offense, making some plays, and not just necessarily looking for your shot all the time. I mean, driving with a purpose to get someone else open, that type of thing. So I think he's getting there. And I'm sure Coach Corbin was very pleased with what he saw.
Let's go back to that pick and roll you were talking about. So they're running it with Bellinelli, and they're bringing Boozer to the middle. He got some free throw line jumpers he hit. He then also got isolated in some space and was able to drive with the left hand. Was there a flaw defensively? Marvin came over and fouled once, or was it just good plays by Boozer late?
I think it was some good plays, but Boozer took what was given to him there. And Marvin, one of the plays that Marvin was coming over, he was going for the steal instead of going for getting in Boozer's way just for the position defense there, and that hurt because that put Boozer on the free throw line. But Bellinelli, I thought, did a great job because they forced him baseline, then he caught Boozer at the free throw line for the jumper, or he put the ball on with the left hand. When they were able to go back to the middle of the floor, that's when Boozer caught and took Millsap off the dribble with the left hand as well. So I didn't think Paul Millsap handled that well, but again, the Bulls put a stop to the Jazz run and fought off the home court surge.
You're going to look back on this game if you're trying to find places. Everyone will focus on the final few minutes when things didn't go well for the Jazz. There was a strange Paul Millsap 3 in the left corner where the play getting the ball inbounds broke down. I don't think Paul ever anticipated getting the ball. He tried to drive on Taj Gibson, and Gibson cut off his path, and Paul's reaction with 18 left in the game, down 3, was to take a step back left corner 3. It's certainly not a shot you wanted late.
Definitely not, especially that type of a shot, awfully tough shot to make. Even though he's shooting over about 40% from the three-point line, he doesn't shoot a lot of them. He had a stretch there where he was making those shots. It's not the guy that you would normally want to shoot a three-point shot. But
It's an awfully hard situation. You're not intended to get the ball. That's not where the ball was supposed to go.
Yeah.
The play has broken down at that point, and you're kind of stuck. And I think the Jazz were without time, may have been without a timeout also. I'd have to check that.
No timeout.
So I think he's not able to call a timeout. If he picked up his dribble, they really might have been in even worse shape at that point. It's I don't know at that point when Paul gets the ball and he gets his drive cut off baseline what the play is he's actually supposed to make at that point. I just know that step back three is not what they intended to have at that moment. The other one, though, if you really look at the game as a 48-minute composition, the amount of loose balls that either fortuitously or out of hustle went to the Bulls in the first half of this game is as much as anything that dictated how this game was played.
Put the Jazz in a hole where they were just constantly digging, trying to make things happen out there on the floor, and then when they did come up with some stops, they ended up losing because of not being in position, or maybe it was the hustle plays of the Chicago Bulls. But whatever the case, they just could not come up with those loose balls in the first half.
They just led to everything from a Bellinelli three to layups for Gibson. Jeff Hornacek said it to us at halftime. We're well below 50% on our loose balls, and that's as important as anything for the Jazz. If the Jazz play like this, really what this was kind of a continuation of that Pacers game, and they got one, they didn't get the other. But if they play like that the rest of the way, this is going to be a good final 31 games. We open the broadcast kind of who are they? If that's who they want to be, if they can play that game like they did against the Pacers, that game like they just did against the Bulls, then they'll be okay.
They'll be okay, David, but watching them play the Denver Nuggets last night, I knew this was going to be a tough game for the Jazz to win, because if the Jazz don't play with the type of pace that they even played with in that first quarter for their entire game against this team, you know how good defensively they are, and this is a team that execute in the half court. They only get up 81 shots a ball game. The Jazz get up about 81 shots a game, but this is the way the Bulls want to play, this style of basketball. And I just thought the pace would have been a lot better for the Jazz, because especially late in that fourth quarter, they would have gotten a lot more easier shots.
Well, after a miserable 43 minutes, Carlos Boozer gets the last laugh. He leads the 11-2 run, sends the Boo Birds home unhappy, and the Jazz fall to the Chicago Bulls 93-89. It was Boozer's 11 straight in the fourth quarter that was the difference. On behalf of Ron, I'm David. We'll talk to you in Sacramento tomorrow. Have a good night and be safe.